On this neon episode, we are polishing the ugly faded headlights, painting the eyesore of a hood, replacing the rusty trunk, upgrading the suspension with $65 coilovers, and much more. Pay attention as the exterior turns from this to this. To restore the headlights, I got the cheapest kit at AutoZone. There's only 4 steps, so this should be simple. First, I used side 1 on the scuff pad that came with the kit with the lubricant. Then I cleaned the surface. Then I used side 2 of the sandpaper for a finer sanding with lubricant. I rinsed off the headlight and decided I needed some more of side 2 because it was still looking really ugly. After rinsing again, I went ahead and hit it with the polisher with the provided compound. I then applied a clear coat layer which never really dried. I bought new gaskets that go around the headlights and installed them off camera at a later date. But look at how absolutely amazing they look for only $12. The first thing I did was sand the hood with a maroon scuff pad on the end of a drill. Then I prepared the paint booth, basically my brother's garage. I started by vacuuming any loose dust on the floor that I could potentially kick up by walking around a bunch. I then laid a tarp down with some support for the hood. I cleaned the hood with compressed air and spray away glass cleaner, followed by a tack cloth. I started by laying down primer on the corners and the underneath to ensure full coverage so nothing rusts. I then started by painting in small controlled increments to ensure even coverage. I am by no means a painting professional, I just watched a lot of YouTube. I did 3 layers of primer, which took 1 can each, and I waited about 15 minutes in between layers. After an hour of that drying, I wet sanded with a 600 grit gray scuff pad. I then cleaned up everything and tacked it again and went on to the base coat. Same story, 3 layers with 15 to 30 minutes in between. It was starting to look amazing, literally glass. After letting the base coat dry for an hour, I went on to the clear coat, and this is where it all went downhill.
Decrease my distance just a little bit, maybe about a ½ inch closer to the panel will make a big difference when moving a lot slower, and you'll see this thing will gloss right up.
I followed this guy's advice and stayed very close to the surface with the clear coat, but this was my biggest mistake. The can I used was way more powerful than any can I've used before, even the base coat. In reality, I literally should have been further than I was before. This made the end result super streaky and caused a bunch of bubbles and one huge run. Well, it's better than before, and the grinder marks from the previous owners were worse than any paint imperfection I could have caused. Tires and the impact is there as well.
This shit's so light.
Yeah, it's really light.
It's just what? Yeah, it's steel because it was rusting.
So let's try not to ding up the corners at all.
I think that's doable.
Look at that. Now this is all the waste that came from this hood restoration, including the hood, mostly because the DA marks that are still in the hood, I couldn't really fill those in with just primer. All in all, I would not recommend you try this. I got this trunk from my local pull apart and it was already black. The paint on it was almost perfect. There were a fair bit of swirls on it, so I thought it would be a really fun challenge to practice compound and polish. I've done it a few times, but I've never been perfect. I spent a good few hours detailing it and made it literally perfect, just for me to forget to record the end result. For some reason, the wiring harness plug was completely different, so I had to move the old harness over, even though it was spliced. After taking the spoiler off, one of my employees helped me put on and adjust the trunk perfectly. Good morning, guys. Today we are going to be installing coilovers on my Dodge Neon Srt4. Right now it is on OEM struts, Mopar stage 1 lowering springs. You see the blue springs right there, but the shocks are all blown out, and so the car drives like garbage. Now don't mind the mess of parts and stuff everywhere. These are a set of Coney shocks, and I got these used on eBay. The guy said they only had around 4,000 miles on them. With these, you have to cut up the original suspension and slide these in and put the original suspension back together. Now, I could do that and have the car disabled for like a week or something. These are my $65 set of used coilovers, and I'm super excited to install them on my Dodge Neon Srt4. After a few bolts, the old struts were out.
Out with the old and in with the new. Well, almost new.
The new ones went in just as easy. Almost as easy as sponsoring my videos. If you want to be a sponsor of my channel, please email me in the email in the description. These came pre-adjusted, so I'm very happy with how they look. The only issue is the ride quality is the absolute worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. It literally feels like I replaced the suspension with welded rebar. There is zero travel. My Neon came with no sway bars. That paired with blown shocks makes the ride quality awful. From factory, the Srt4 comes with 24mm front bars and 17mm rear bars. There are only two ways to upgrade these. 1. Spend $500 on fancy aftermarket red sway bars. Or 2. Find a PT Cruiser GT convertible, get the front 26mm sway bar from it, and find a Dodge Neon RT and get the rear 19mm sway bar from it. Obviously, I went with the cheaper option. I actually lost all the footage of me installing these sway bars because of my stupid GoPro. 50 bucks later and I got some rusty bars. Time to add another zero to it.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Sprayed up glass we just laid. Even spray painted the bushings red. My wheel bearings keep going out on my Neon on the passenger side, so I think the spindle is messed up. So this should hopefully fix my 3 wheel bearing in 5,000 mile issue. We also got new axle nut kits courtesy to my friend Ryan Barr. These are wheel hubs from a PT Cruiser, not just any PT Cruiser but the turbo version. These are supposed to have upgraded steering angle and handling versus the Neon's knuckles. As you can see, these holes are off center versus the Neons that are in the center, so this should give us more turning radius. These were already cut on my car, so I'm not worried about it. Let's throw these in. I'm not gonna paint them or anything because it doesn't really matter. This is the passenger wheel. There is nothing left. Like, I feel bad. I have to put these back on because I really wanted to order EBC brake pads, the yellow stuff. This is that passenger side bearing that keeps going bad. Look at all that play. I know there's supposed to be play. None of these have like any play in them. This is the PT Cruiser knuckle. This is the Neon knuckle. You can see the difference in the tie rod position. My wheels are perfectly straight. And this is my steering wheel. Oh my gosh.
Alright guys, we're at the shop. Mike's doing his control arm while I was applying for credit cards. This shop now. Pork chop! Pork chop. This car's very clean underneath.
Yeah, there's no rust almost.
No rust, yeah, and not at all. Let me show you guys pinch wheel. Yeah, it's really, really nice.
Welcome back to Mike's vlog. These were the lower control arms. This ball joint had no boot on it. Very loose. It also has poly bushings from like 1991 on there because they are like biodegraded. They're completely gone. 60 bucks later, car is mint refreshed.
Obviously, the exterior is not perfect by any means. I'm just catching you guys up on all the stuff I've done in the past 6 months to the car. I still have to do the interior video and the engine bay. The next video will be focusing on engine maintenance, and oh boy, it's bad. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe or I'm gonna blow up the motor.